another episode of People, Place, and Purpose, the show where we hear stories from business owners, creators, and entrepreneurs about how they got started, what they love most, what challenges them, where they've had to pivot, learn, change, how relationships and networking have helped along the way, and ultimately, how they turn their passion into a successful venture and are living a life they love. I'm your host, Kate Lusko. I love to travel, eat delicious food, and meet and get to know cool people, and I'm so glad you're here today. Let's jump in. Trent Sanders and Steve Gabriel are co-founders and managing partners of 36 Creative based in Windham, New Hampshire. They grew up together in neighboring towns, discovered their professional compatibility while working together to install radios in friends' cars when they were young, and concocted the idea to start this now about 20-person agency while hanging out in Steve's attic during a Halloween party. Throughout this episode and the stories they tell, you'll repeatedly hear them talk about their purpose, both in life and with this business, and it might surprise you. With that, let's get to today's episode. So welcome, Trent and Steve. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning.
Thanks for having us.
So to start off, I always like people to talk a little bit about your background. So where you're from originally, what you did before doing what you do now, maybe what you wanted to be as a kid. I always think that's sort of fascinating. Some of the things that people thought they wanted to be when they were young. Steve, do you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. So I'm from Southern New Hampshire, Salem, New Hampshire. And when I was a kid, I don't remember. I think I wanted to be in the NBA. And my genetics put a quick fork in that. So from there, went to college, was in engineering. I thought I had a passion for electrical engineering, and, that quickly shifted. I think first year in college, I changed and moved over to business because I just loved the concept of business and how business worked, and financing and marketing, and even accounting a little to some degree, although accounting is pretty boring. So then, coming out of college, I was like, that's it, this, Southern New Hampshire boy is going to take his financial skills all the way to Wall Street and, and trade stocks institutionally. That was like when I was in college. I'm like, I'm going to be an institutional stock trader. And, flash forward, I got sucked right back to, where I'm from, and started a creative agency. So it's a complete 180.
Interesting. I saw you worked at FedEx and Fidelity. So there were a couple of ventures, jobs into the corporate sector.
Yeah, no, I did it. The whole thing started with, I did a ton in finance, Liberty, S&P. I worked for S&P, worked for Fidelity. And then I got a job doing mortgages, selling mortgages for a while. And then I dabbled into the real estate world. And then when I was doing mortgages is when the company I was working for needed a website. And that, was around the same time 36 was becoming a 36. And we can get into that later.
Yeah.
But that's like where things transitioned for me.
Okay.
And it's all for the better too. So
full circle. So you're one of those boomerangs, right? Who sort of left and
big time boomerang. I married, a girl from my hometown. We went to the same elementary school. She was just a little bit younger, so I never knew her growing up, but it was hilariously boomerang city.
Well, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks.
Trent, how about you? Tell us your story.
I guess I'm a boomerang as well. I like that. I started off, my aspirations as a child were to be, I think the strongest one was probably a National Geographic photographer. I thought I was going to travel the world and take photos. I remember grabbing one of my parents' cameras and just taking, like, my mother thought I was insane because I was just taking photos, but I didn't have money or hadn't even asked for film. I was just snapping photos of things. So I went to UNH, all the graduate students were taking the places in the in the photography classes. So I got a little sidetracked, started to look into a degree in English. I then transferred to more of an experiential school out in Arizona called Prescott College, and they allowed me to finish both degrees, my English and my photography, which sounds really cool. And I've never actually heard it outlined, Steve, like you just did. And just like seeing the grand differences between our intelligence. It's really interesting. Like I joke about writing details, but I think it may actually be true. But the best part I think about my college experience was I graduated, I believe the year, like I graduated really, really good in the darkroom, like being able to process my own film and all of that. And I graduated in the year, I believe that Kodak said they weren't going to be manufacturing film anymore. And I think Polaroid went out of business.
Perfect timing.
So I paid, a moderate amount of money for a 5-year degree in the, I guess, the school of life. I did enjoy all the people I met and the experiences I had. And then I went to work with basically my business mentor at Tint King and Bill Ricca. We did commercial and auto film installation and learned a ton of great basics of marketing. We grew that business just kind of out of instinct. I did not have a marketing degree or business degree. And it just, it felt really in line with with all of my passions. I am certainly creative and an artistic person, and being able to use that in the real world. And I think that's where Steve and I start to align, is just like a huge interest in how business works, business operations, the strategy behind everything from the finances to how you brand yourself and present yourself in the marketplace. And that just fascinates both of us, I believe, and gets us into discovery conversations with potential clients and current clients, where we dig a little bit deeper into what's going on just because we're interested. And I think it helps us have a little bit more of a holistic and insightful view of what, how we're going to plug into that.
So how do you two know each other?
Yes.
My side of the story is that, or the thing I always say is that it's the only time I use Venn diagram, but I try to keep it alive because, they made it such a big thing in high school. And I feel like we had our two schools. I was from Windham, he was from Salem, and our two schools met up in high school. And it was like this Venn diagram of friends. And then we would once in a while hang out skateboarding or whatnot. And then kind of went our own way for a bit. And then there's, I guess, another long story of us being at a party and realizing that we were kind of over the college party days and wanted to do something new, and just started that conversation and kind of tied us a little closer than we had been in the past.
Yeah. So, and just to add to that too, there's, when you're in high school, you don't remember much, but there are times where, Trent and I, maybe 5 to 10 times, people would ask us if we could, we're dating ourselves now, but you could like swap out the radio in your car. Mm-hmm. And we used to do that for a bunch of friends and stuff. And for some weird reason, nobody had an interest in it. But Trent and I were like, dude, this is awesome. Let's do this. So like, we would swap out my radio, do it for a couple of friends. You go to the store, buy the harness, and spend like the afternoon like problem solving. How are we going to hide the wires? How is this going to, work? This, and then obviously you turn the car on and you test it and it's like, good work. But like that whole process, if I could go back and pinpoint the times where it was very clear, like, this is not a tip. Nobody else was doing that, and then even before we started 36, I had a Super Bowl party at my house. I lived in Rye at the time, and Trent came and everyone was, so into the Super Bowl and drinking beers or whatever. And I texted Trent like, dude, bring your skateboard. So this was like years after we used to skateboard. And we spent, 4 hours in the garage trying to kickflip again. And like, every now and then somebody would come downstairs and be like, what are you guys doing? We'd be like sweating, kickflipping, like, dude,
That's
but
where the
there was,
real party was.
yeah, exactly. They didn't know it at the time. And then like the next couple days we couldn't walk. But yeah, I think that there was definitely some signs of like, oh, these two work really well together. They're just like always seeking for the next thing, not really settling for what's happening, which is I think the common theme. And then the way 36 came to be is we were at another party at my house. I don't know, it might have been a Halloween party. It doesn't matter. And like, same thing. People were drinking and partying, just having a good time. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the time I had one computer and it was, there was no Wi-Fi. So it was the outlet to plug in the computer was like in the attic. It was a partially finished attic, so it's not as creepy as it sounds. But so Trent and I were up there and we were looking up stuff like, dude, what can we start? We should start something. What can we start? So there's this party going on downstairs and we're upstairs figuring out what we can start. And 3 hours later, we had an idea, a concept, a name. The next day, we created lists like, all right, here's what we need to do the next day. Then here's what we need to do within the next week. And here's what we need to do within the next month. And from there, it just kind of like snowballed. And we both were like, check, 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 check. Dude, did you do this? Yeah. Did you do this? Yeah. Oh, we've got our first meeting. And then it just kind of rolled from there. And it was a slow roll, a humble start.
Well, and so you mentioned the name, which was one of the things I was curious about. So, I mean, you decided that right from the beginning. What was that? Where did it come from?
Actually,
Well,
yeah.
Technically, we had another name, and that was one of my genius ideas. Our first name was Eclectic Promotional Designs Incorporated.
Wow. Okay.
It rolls off the tongue. And most people thought we were an electric company, but we did realize the difficulty there pretty quickly, and we went through, and we still do naming as a capability today, but it's a very, very difficult. It really is a difficult process, and there's a lot of legal challenges that you have to go through, even if you find something that you love. And we went through like 4 months of that, and finally Steve just called me and said, hey man, I've been whiteboarding this all day and I just realized that, or not realized, but I just thought of the fact that we've always celebrated the same birthday. Why don't we just use the numbers of our birthday? So it was 3/6 is our birthday. And it's not because we're all about our people remembering our birthdays, but it is a pretty good way.
Yeah.
if you ever want to send some cookies or something like that.
Around the same time, we had planned a surprise birthday party for ourselves.
Oh yeah.
And I think that was like, like we created a fake email address. Two, one was Trent's brother, and then one was like my sister. And then we sent out emails to all of our friends, and we had so much fun with it. Like,
I was just gonna ask, like, who was gonna be surprised? But this just sounds amazing. I don't know why more people don't plan surprises.
I know it actually was pretty fun because you got to see what people thought you wanted to do and stuff. Like, oh, where do they like to go out to eat? And then, oh no, they don't like that place. And we'd be like, yeah, no. I heard Steve didn't like that place at all. Like, we messed with them. And then the whole thing was we were going to show up and be like, have shirts that just said surprise on them, like, and surprise everybody. Like that's the stuff that we did back in the day, where it was just not typical or normal.
Yeah.
But Trent's girlfriend found out and got like really upset. So it kind of ruined the whole plan at the time. Some people were still surprised. We tried to stretch it out as long as we could, but it was but after that it's like, dude, that's kind of what we do. We like create weirdness. We have the same birthday. It's a number. It's easy.
Yep.
It's easy to spell, kind of.
years and years ago, I was involved with trying to bring a food co-op to Manchester.
Mm-hmm.
And so this was before, it was just an idea, and a big group of us got together and tried to come up with a name. And, hundreds of names on this list, all sorts of different things. And what we eventually came back to, which it still hasn't come to fruition, but what we eventually came down to was Manchester Food Co-op. And it was such an interesting exercise when at the end of the day, we just wanted to convey what it was and make it clear and easy for people. And it was just fascinating to me, sort of being a part of it, but also kind of looking from the outside that, it's way more complicated than just, hey, we're going to call ourselves X. There's so much you have to think about. And now with websites and social media handles, and you talked about incorporation and all of those pieces, there's so much more to it. Okay, so you had this big list of all the things that this was going to be. I mean, what was the concept from the beginning? Is it pretty true to what you are today?
We've kept I think we've kept a significant portion of the heart and soul pretty solidly. I joke about it, but it's not that much of a stretch to say that our initial goal was really just to help small business have access to better design. And I think our essence at the time was to make our vision at the time was to make the world a more beautiful place. And it sounds naive and very simple, but I think that's really what we came down to at first. I worked a ton with fleet services doing the window film stuff, and Steve had a great educational background and corporate background in business formation. So we kind of just held on to that, and he helped with the financing and accounting. I did a lot of the initial years, maybe biz dev, and then we both did the design ourselves. But it was, I think that key point of just trying to help connect small business with beautiful design, and a lot of that has stayed true. We've certainly, a couple of years in, we realized that the question of why you're doing something is very important in design, and that discovery of understanding who the person is talking to and what their challenges are in the buying process. We rather quickly brought on a brand strategist and someone to help out with creating kind of the foundational elements of a brand. So we built with that, and then for 10 years we were a creative shop with focus on brand strategy, and then started to develop our growth marketing side of things. And I suppose I'm forgetting because it feels like it's all one, but also we were right at the advent of the web, and so that became kind of part and parcel of the creative process, is being able to do a really good quality interactive builds, websites and apps and things like that.
And how do you figure out, or how did you figure out? It always seems to me there's so much. I mean, there's the whole business side, like who's your ideal client and what are you going to do and how much are you going to charge, right? Like there's so many decision points on that side, but then there's sort of the internal, what's your culture going to be like, and what are your values, and who are you going to hire first? And how did you approach all of those pieces to figure out what you were going to do, how you're going to make this?
I think we could both answer that. I'll give you the floor this time, Stevie.
Yeah, no, it's funny. Those things are so important to business. And when we first started, Trent and I were 50-50 partners, and we were advised by everyone not to do that, because you hear so often, it's going to get ugly, or something's going to happen. And both of us, I think, share a similar approach on life in general. Like neither of us are selfish or have a sense of entitlement. We're both like open to a better idea always, which I think kind of leads to the search for perfection, which we both know doesn't exist. But I think what comes along with that is like, there's no when you talk about culture and stuff like that, I feel like that the culture of 36, it kind of still is what it is. If you compare us to pretty much every other agency, probably across the country, there's no sense of ego. You know, for the longest time, we tried to operate without having titles. Um, a good idea can come from everyone, not just an art director, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a true sense of collab. There's a true sense of like, it's it's bigger and better than any individual there, you know, like there's a whole team aspect of it. So it's funny, those decisions, they weren't even decisions. It's just kind of like how we were raised, I think. Like we weren't raised similarly. Um, but there are some like very key elements when it comes to ethics and morals and values that I think are just so aligned. You know, like will, we will fire a client instantly if they disrespect anybody on the team. Like that's not, those are the things where money or no money, like we'll try now dance in Times Square in New York City with a bucket in front and hope somebody will put a couple dimes in there.
I think Trent wondered where you were going with that for a
Yeah.
minute.
No, I mean, like it's just not like those are the values. Like it's a life. We're living in this. It's not all about work. It's not all about the clients. It's not all about money. It's like about finding good balance and doing it with people that you enjoy being around, and getting through each day excited and like ready to attack the day. Not like I'm gonna make a boatload of money today, or I don't care what I have to do. I'm gonna make it. It's like, all these like concepts that you hear. And to that degree, we probably um, made some bad business decisions along the way, but good decisions in regards to, you know, how we want to be remembered and um, how we approach life. Like it's all about just doing what's right versus doing what's right for the bottom line, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds like good people decisions, maybe.
Yeah, I have this is a real story, and I've shared this before, but we one time early on we didn't have a lot of clients. We didn't have like a long runway, or that you talk about cash flow and how long can you exist if all your clients just disappeared, and we didn't have any of that ramp up, and we had a really good opportunity with this. It was a food company, and we were driving to the meeting. It was a big meeting. We had been preparing for like a week and a half, and we were on this like windy side road, and it wasn't the nicest day out. And we drove by this little old lady who had a flat tire, and we like drove by and like, dude, what do you think what I'm thinking? And when Trent was like, yep. So we turned around and got out and helped like change this lady's tire, and we laughed so hard with her. She was like so thankful, and we're like, oh, we got this. We do this every day. You're just lucky that you happen two mechanics happen to drive by you while we're doing this. And like meanwhile,
Did
we
you
don't
swap
really
her
know.
radio while you were there?
Yeah, we don't really know what we were doing, but we figured it out. Like probably took us 20 minutes to figure how to operate the jack. But needless to say, we missed our meeting, and we called and let them know that. But it's like I think that's just a good representation of 36. Like it's not so much, it's not like, yeah, we're here for a reason, we solve a problem, we believe in our products and services all day, but like sometimes there are more important things in life that throw you for a loop that you just have to attack at the time. So it's I think we got like a follow-up meeting on the books with them eventually, but it was a pretty funny day. Like we drove home laughing, like, dude, can you believe that? Meeting went well, huh? Yeah, I think they're gonna go with us. Like it was pretty funny.
I was going to ask if you had lost the opportunity with the client, or if that was if it sort of came around, like you got to do the right thing and still.
I think it did come around. I think it did come around. I think we worked with them for a couple of years after that, but the expectation wasn't that. It was like we can either drive by this little old lady who knows who, you know, if she's got help coming or whatnot, or so I think we did what we thought was right at the time.
So I want to pick up on one of the things that you said that was actually something I was curious about, through when I was in college studying business, you learn what a partnership is, but you're pretty quickly advised against it, right? That the partnerships are tricky and, dangerous in quotation marks, right? All of those things. And so I'm curious, I mean, clearly you've made it work all of this time. How has that been? Has that created challenges? Has it worked really well? Obviously you knew back when you were younger that you worked well together, but what has it been like to be in a partnership?
I think I would also, or I even have advised people not to do a partnership. We've had different partnerships along the way, and examples of bad partnerships in family, in other different family businesses, and we've seen what it can do, and it can be really, really bad. I think it's extremely unique to find someone that you trust as we do each other. However, I think it ties into that last question of, what were those conscious decisions to make the culture and the business what it is today? And I think we honestly we care. I was given one of the best compliments I've been given in the agency world 2 months ago by another agency owner I believe he's in Manchester. And, we had this long conversation, and he was telling us, different stories of success. And then he just said, you guys do have a reputation, and it's just that you guys you're good guys. And I think the reason Steve and I have worked as a partnership is because that's more so important than anything else. It's like doing the right thing and caring. And it's not an ego play or anything like that. It just feels more comfortable to do that. And we also had a unique experience, and I'm not sure who thought of it or where it came from our, past lives or whatever, but our very first argument and only argument, and people don't really believe that, but it's 100% true, was about recycled paper on our first brochure. And I wanted to save the world, and Steve wanted to save money. And I don't remember, and it's not important who won the argument, but at one point, and I don't think it was a volatile situation, but it was certainly a strong disagreement with some feelings. And somewhere in that process, we just realized, I don't remember who said it, but it was, what are we both arguing for? And it was for 36 to succeed. So it had nothing to do with my opinion or his opinion or any of that. It just had to do with what was the best decision for 36. And we did pros and cons, and, pretty much have dealt with any disagreements since then with that approach. It's not really, I want the best for Steve and his family. I think he wants the best for myself and my family, but ultimately in this relationship, it's, on the business side of things, it's what's the best for 36. And it's allowed us to be never fearful of that 50-50 split, to be honest. We've also made a couple of people partners, so we could probably do a little mutiny if we had to, but.
Oh, that's funny.
So you referenced ahead of time that you've sort of learned from your failures. And so I'm curious, what are some of the lessons that you've learned throughout the course of all of these years? What year was it that you started kind of officially?
Official is 2004.
Okay.
So we failed a ton. I'll tell a story. So when we first started, you talk about humble beginnings. We really didn't start with anything. Typical agencies branch off, like somebody, two people will leave an agency and start their own, and they'll take clients with them, and they have revenue already, and they can kind of mold their approach and whatnot. So Trent and I just had an idea. So we really started from nothing. So we actually started doing business card design, because it was really the only thing we knew how to design at the time. But then from there, we through like just personal network, we would get somebody call and be like, hey, I need a business card, and we would sell them at, at a higher quality or a higher cost, because the quality of the cards, we found a vendor that could do really thick, nice cards. And at the time, nobody was doing that. So we had a product to back it up. And so through a friend of a friend, we worked with this guy, we did his business cards, and we met up to talk to him about it. And, I don't even know why we met up to talk about business cards. It sounds funny to even talk about, like, what are we talking about? Phone numbers and emails? So anyways, we met up with this dude. We're driving in the back of his car. He says, do you guys do websites? And Trent said, yeah, we do websites. And then, we said, all right, we'll be in touch. So we get out of the car, we get back in our car to drive home. And I was like, dude, we do websites. He's like, yeah, dude, it can't be that hard. We got to figure it out. I'm like, all right, so we'll figure it out. So we spent
apparently it is actually that hard.
yeah. Apparently you actually can go to school for that now. So we spent the entire summer learning how to do a website. By we, I mean primarily Trent, and I was just there for emotional support. But so we, put in a crazy ton of hours, design this website, went to go present the website, and this dude had gone to prison.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So long story short, we never got paid for anything. All the business cards we did for him, and the summer long website. So we learned, that was our lesson on, having a contract in place and getting a down payment before you start any project. Like those are funny things that when you're young and you're just moving, you just want to go. And it's important to realize, like, your work and time has value, and you gotta make sure to keep that at the forefront, or else why wouldn't this guy disappear or go to prison or whatever people do when they run away? And
except I think it says something about your character, that you were trusting, right? That you sort of didn't come at it from a place of protecting yourself, right? Even if it was because you were younger or naive, whatever it was, I think it says something that, the thought that he would not pay you, we'll leave the prison part aside, because I don't know that anybody would have thought of that, but the thought that he wouldn't pay you didn't cross your mind. And I don't know, I think there's something sort of wholesome in that.
Yeah, I think that's, that's why you have business attorneys and contracts, and, there's all the legal stuff, and that stuff is super important. But we've always operated, and still, and I knock on wood, but we've never had to call on a contract in 15 years, 16 years of business, not once, where we had to say, you sign this, you owe us the money, or a client said, you sign this, you owe us X, Y, and Z. It's always been more of a guideline, and once it's signed, it's out of the way. We still operate on a like a trusting handshake type of approach, because who wants to live in a world where you're constantly questioning everybody's intentions? It's like, for us, it's like, I'd rather just assume people are really good, and then maybe be proved wrong, maybe, or just assume people are really good and find out that they are really good, which is typically the case. So yeah, we've learned a ton of lessons like that along the way. A ton.
And so what about some of your biggest successes?
Trent, you want to take this one?
I guess the answer to that, or the most valuable answer to that, would be something that I think drives us, and I'm not even sure we've been able to grasp yet, but we do talk about it frequently, which is we are in a pursuit of perfection, which we know doesn't exist, but our successes are generally just looked at as another step in the right direction. And it was a bunch of years ago now, we were at actually Jocelyn's restaurant in Salem, which is amazing Lebanese or Mediterranean food. And we ordered a martini on like a Tuesday, and she was like, "What are you guys doing? It's lunchtime on a Tuesday, ordering martinis." And I believe because she made fun of us for years for it, but we very dryly said, it's October and we already made our number for the year. And she was like, "Holy cow, like that's amazing. Why are you not smiling? This is an exciting thing." And we were like, "Well, it is very cool. We appreciate the acknowledgement of that, but it just means that we didn't set the goal high enough, and we need to reevaluate like what our growth looks like for the next year." And so it's funny when you ask what are our successes. I would say I think maybe the thing I'm most proud of is having a team that I almost consider a family still sticking together through COVID, through just any challenges before that, doing incredible work and having some vestige and hopefully a growing amount of work-life balance. I think that would be the thing I'm most proud of.
Yeah, that's funny. I mean, that's a hilarious. I would have the same answer. I mean, it's if you took a look at the work Trent and I were doing when we first started, it's comical. Like we bring it up to the team often when people need a good laugh. Like, dude, look at this work. Don't forget who you're talking to, And I feel like our biggest success is probably just the team. I mean, when you realize what you're good at, what you're not good at, and you can, grow a team that's really, really good at what they do, but more so, even better, doing it together. It's like, that's pretty cool. And obviously that's reflected in the work now, where we are doing stuff for, global brands and, stuff that other agencies perhaps can't do. They'll come to us for the hard stuff, and it's like, that's kind of cool. Like that, it came from a awful business card design. I mean, if you take a look at the trajectory. So it's all about the people. I mean, otherwise it would just be shitty business cards.
And so how has it been with COVID? Like, how has it been keeping the team together and morale and culture and all of those pieces?
I don't think it was, I think you always have to be careful with this one because there's been so much negative. We happened to be, when we first started, I got into a conversation with about 10 different agencies across the country, just talking about our challenges and where we were at. And what it came down to for a creative agency or a marketing agency was portfolio and pipeline. And so some people had their whole portfolio was hospitality and their pipeline might have been hospitality as well. And it was just, a very, very difficult road ahead for those. We also have a very close friend who runs an experiential agency. And so, I think she called, we definitely shed some tears between a couple of these agencies, but she called and said, 70% of my revenue was just stopped because South by Southwest was canceled and, public gatherings were canceled. So we just happened to be in a very fortunate place where our portfolio and our pipeline was rather solid. We certainly saw some huge losses those first couple of weeks. But to go back to where I was going to start, I think it was with the team that we have and everybody putting as much as they did into it, I think it was easier than we thought at first. I think we thought we were going to lose the whole thing just because it was so unknown.
Mm-hmm.
But with who we had and what was in our portfolio, we have an incredible controller who kind of helped us navigate some of the waters financially at first. And we made it through rather well. And I think, you have to always acknowledge those negatives that everyone has gone through personally and business wise, but what do they say that I can't think of the saying currently, but we through that fire we got a lot better at a lot of different things. I think, again, personally and business-wise, I think business-wise, we were able to pivot into some new offerings that we had never offered, but were extremely helpful for our clients and for our internal team to have a little bit more visibility. So I think we came out of it better than we went into it, but it was, I guess, exactly like my answer. It was very confusing and unsettling time, but we made it, and it was, I think in the end, it was positive for us, but that's crazy to say.
So this is your baby, right? You've had this for all of these years and, been able to pour yourselves into it and create this great team. Where do you hope it will go in the future? Do you have a dream client or a new avenue or a size you want to get to? Sort of what are your hopes for this?
Yeah, we just want to sell for a lot of money. And no, just can you imagine if that was the answer? The whole podcast is you could just throw it out. Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think, we see us being, I think that the pursuit for perfection is something that's always there. Like, I don't think we're doing really good work, but I don't think we're doing the work we really want to do, or doing it as well as we can still. Like, I think there's still opportunity to be the best, be better, be the best, so I feel like that's part of it. We definitely are doing more campaign driven work than we ever have before. So me personally, I keep saying, like, I just want to do, one of those crazy nationwide TV spots that are just unexpected but emotionally, wowing. Like, that would be cool to see that happen in the near future. But yeah, no aspirations to be like, we're a 20-person shop now. We have no, passion or drive to grow that to be a 150-person shop.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like a very uncreative thing to do, and we've seen it happen throughout the industry. Is like people just try to grow and grow and grow, and then their work becomes trash, and then they get bought out, and everyone wants to leave. It's like, so we just want to do good work, cultivate an awesome culture still, focus on work-life balance, have fun with the team along the way, celebrate the big wins together, and work hard to get through, the losses together. I think that's it. We don't have like a 5-year plan of growing and selling, and it's like, again, very untraditional approach to business and whatnot, maybe, but for us, we're enjoying what we're doing and want to just get better at it.
Trent, how about for you? Is there anything about this that, even on a personal level, something that you want to experience or a place you want to grow as a professional through the business?
Yeah, I guess 36 has allowed me to start a nonprofit that I work pretty tightly with. And I love that. And, my aspiration in that regard, in a professional regard, would be to continue to grow that and try to leave some sort of lasting, can be anonymous, but just lasting change. Yeah, I think the one thing that goes through my head probably every day, because I do a ton of business development, is just having a portfolio of clients that really are passionate about what they do, understand the value of what we do, and can just have an ongoing desire to build a really strong relationship around growing their brand. I think that's like, and we have a lot of that. We just, it's still a business. We still struggle with misalignment on personality, or misalignment on what we believe would be successful versus what an organization might believe. And so, those will always be challenges, but just working with good people that understand that we do care, and just kind of working together to grow different brands. I think that's my biggest aspiration. Yeah, like Steve said, it's not really about selling. And I think a lot of the times, we've been told many times to pick a niche or, try to focus where we try to get business, and it just has always seemed uncreative. And I think some of the things that Steve mentioned earlier about being, learning lessons, I think certainly you do things outside of the norm, and you find that sometimes they're not the best decisions, but we do things a little bit different, and I think it's been working. And also what Steve said is why we're just enjoying what we're doing. So to keep it
so
keep
important.
that going.
Yeah, that's great. And what does the nonprofit do?
We basically try to use bicycles to empower and elevate communities around the world. We do focus on the youth. So COVID brought us local, and we, work with some local schools and do some bike drives with different charitable foundations around. But yeah, it's called the Mutt Society. It's actually this shirt, but this shirt's just the Give shirt.
Well, and so that's a great tie-in, right? I'm sure work-life balance is part of the culture. And so what do you both do for fun? How do you spend your time when you're not working?
I have like 1,000 kids. So
and all girls, right?
all girls. Yeah, that's it. So no, but that's definitely part of it. We both growing up had fathers that traveled a lot and weren't around. So that's one of the benefits of 36. We're just coming out of COVID right now at my house, and just having the flexibility, to not have to worry about driving to work or calling in sick, or that's worth so much. And it's been like that throughout. So there were years where I was leaving the office at 3 and picking up my 2 oldest and driving them to dance, and changing them quick in the bathroom, and dropping them off at dance. Like those are some of the things that are intangibles or benefits to 36 that is not your typical thing. But aside from that, aside from gymnastics meets on the weekends, I love those. They're so awesome. Just,
Did I see in your work bio that you're a dancer? Were you a
I teach them. I teach them the good moves. Yeah.
Okay.
If they're acting right, they get to learn a couple good moves from dad.
Okay.
But yeah, no, that's that. I would say that's the majority of it. I do like to golf. I think it's like very similar to 36 in some weird ways. Like it's an incredible sport. When you're young, you just you want to hit it as far and hard as you can. Like that's you gotta love that too. But like the more I get into that, the more I'm like, this game is absolutely impossible. Like this tiny ball has to go in this tiny hole way over there. I mean, the whole concept is pretty funny. But it does kind of help balance out, like approach, strategy, timing, memory, all these things that you can apply to business. So I have been enjoying that too when I have some downtime.
When you get to be outside on a beautiful day.
Yeah, that too.
Right?
Yeah, especially with COVID. I mean, walking around on a beautiful golf course, there's nothing wrong with that. Unless you get poison ivy or stung by a bee or something.
Trent, how about you? Outside of the Mutt Society?
I love traveling. I travel a ton, and that's kind of how the Mutt Society started. We travel with our bikes, and so we would be enjoying different communities in the world that are, it seems like when you're really exploring a country, you find these communities that support mountain biking, but aren't exactly extremely prosperous. And so the communities, just start to make you think about what you have and what others don't. And but yeah, travel and travel and calling Steve and talking to the girls from the back seat. Those are my two things.
Pastimes.
Yeah, really smart conversations, really highly intelligent, smart conversations. Yeah. Yesterday, Trent called. I was driving with my youngest, and she's 4. So he's going, Willa, how are your antibodies? She has COVID. How are your antibodies? And she's going, what? Willa, how are your antibodies? And then she just laughs, and I'm, obviously chime in like, Willa, answer Uncle Trent. How are your antibodies? Real smart stuff.
You're all on the mend.
Yeah.
How about inspiration? Are there podcasts you listen to, books you read that have sort of guided your journey? Other business owners? Where do you find inspiration or guidance or mentorship?
There's a agency co-founder, his name's Steve Gabriel, that I've followed for a long time. He doesn't read, but no, it's a good question. I love interesting podcasts. I don't want to get in any way political here, so but I suppose I can say that I like listening to all different sides, and it seems like in this world it's always some way, shape, or form it twists into a political thing. So but I try to get different perspectives. There is a book called I can never remember if it's Your Ship or It's Our Ship, but it's by a Navy captain that talks about how he managed the operations of a naval vessel, and it's just has like so many different cool little pieces of information that you start highlighting things that you value, and you realize you're just highlighting the entire page. So it's Your Ship, I believe it's called. But I've gotten some good inspiration from that. I guess. Well, I'm Steve. You go. Sorry, that's all I got.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's funny. That's a funny question, because I don't know if it's just like a lack of attention or what, but I'm not good at reading. I'm not really even good at listening to podcasts. I'm not really good at signing up for webinars and stuff like that. But I feel like I'm inspired often, and I do think it's just like seeing the world around you and what's happening. Like Trent with the Mutt Society is inspiring to see that started from nothing, and now I see it's like a global nonprofit right now. I mean, there's people across the world that's tagging Mutt Society. Like for me, that inspires me. It's like, dude, that's how this whole thing works. Somebody has an idea and creates things, and thankfully for me, because I'm a visual learner, like the stuff that I love, like I see, it's in front of us. It's marketed to me. It's advertising. I think advertising in general motivates me and inspires me. I'm a huge Nike fan, always have been, and they've just from the very get-go have always kind of done it right, in my opinion. So I do have the Shoe Dog book, which is about how Nike started, and that's like, that to me is really cool, just how things begin, and the process and the failures, the successes, the stress, like we can all share in that stuff. But then just to see where it is now, and now it's a platform for political items, and it's a way to inspire athletes and generations, and female stars and all this stuff. And it's just so cool to see all that like evolve. Like that's the stuff that I get lost in, just looking at ads on YouTube for hours. I mean, that's kind of probably why I want to do more of that stuff. But
yeah,
but that's the stuff that inspires me. Or Kate, even you, like seeing you start when we first met, whatever that was, like 10 years ago. And we've obviously followed your journey and seen where things go, but it's awesome. I mean, it's really cool. I've never heard anyone say anything but like awesome things about you. So
Thank you.
You're doing it right. It's pretty
I
cool.
appreciate that. I appreciate that. So I just have one final question for you. If any of our listeners at some point find themselves, at someone's house for a football game, escaping to the garage to skateboard and thinking they want to leave their job and start a business, what would you tell them? What would your advice be for an aspiring entrepreneur?
I'll just share something somebody told us a while ago. And, one of our mentors, when we first started, we asked them, how did you guys get started? What do you do? Whatever. And she said her only regret was not doing something sooner. And we see it, like Trent had mentioned, we've had other partnerships along the years and tried to, spin off some other companies. And if it's not Trent and I driving it, it kind of just fizzles out. It always has. You just have to do it. I mean, it seems like a bold thing, but I've never heard anybody that just does it say afterwards, I wish I waited a little bit longer to do it. And it's a funny thing, but if you have an idea or a thought or, a goal or a way to help people, whatever it is, like, just like do it and do whatever you can do the next day to make like progress on the big picture. You don't have to do it all in a day, but just take little chunks out every single day. And then all of a sudden you'll wake up and be like, oh, I did this. Here we are. That would be my one piece of advice. Trent?
I think the safer, or not the safer, I think a safe way to get to that point of just doing it is at least asking yourself if you're really entrepreneurial and if you really want to do it. And I think one of our most successful friends is in software sales or hardware sales, I believe. And, I'm not suggesting that his aspirations were ever money. I think it was actually just where he fell, but he makes probably 10 times more than us, and is happy and is not entrepreneurial. He works for a company. And I think that's probably where he would put himself again if he was asked to do it the same way. So we're just all different people. If you're really entrepreneurial in spirit and want have this attraction to the high risk, extremely agile, everything's on your shoulders attitude, then exactly what Steve said. But just evaluate if that's really something you want to do, because it is a big deal. It's not just, you can't just start a business and think, you're starting it because you've seen what Instagram did and they made billions of dollars and that's why you're doing it. But if you're doing it just because you have no expectations and just want to see what you can do and what you can build from nothing, then absolutely do it sooner than later.
Awesome. All of that is great advice from both of you. So where can people find you online?
44 Old Rockingham Road.
Most days.
Almost every day, yeah.
I mean, website is 36creative.com or 36.agency. We're slowly making a transition. And then our emails are just Trent at 36creative and Steve at 36creative. But definitely reach out. We love chatting with people. So
fantastic. Thank you both for joining me today. It has been fun. After we finish this, I'm going to have to look back and see when we did first meet. My guess is it was back somewhere 2010, 2011. I think it was somewhere in that vicinity, but I'm going to go back and look. But this was wonderful. It was so great to have a chance to talk with you. Thanks for sharing with us today.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
So much laughter and good humor in this episode, and I absolutely love the guiding principles, philosophy, and values that Trent and Steve have incorporated into their work and their team over the years. It's really impressive. On to the takeaways from today's episode. At the end of the day, doing the right thing and being a good person are really what matter most. Not everyone is destined to be an entrepreneur. Really make sure you're willing to withstand the level of risk and responsibility in return for the opportunity to see what you're capable of building. Goals don't have to be complicated. They can be as simple as providing a fantastic workplace or enjoying what you do every day, but do make sure you balance those with something that's going to push or challenge you. Take the time to think about your legacy, and ultimately, it all comes back to the people, your partner, your team, your clients, the world around you. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of People, Place, and Purpose. Please remember to subscribe, rate, review, and leave a comment. As a new podcast, your support really means a lot. And if you know someone who might be inspired by this story, please share it with them. I would also love to engage with you directly, so please find us on Instagram at People, Place, Purpose. I'm so excited for us to continue to learn and grow and discover new things together, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, it's a beautiful day for an adventure. Get out there and explore.